We're pleased to have the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, who has rearranged his schedule to, well, apparently now we're having some problems. Mike Rogers of Michigan. I got him on the phone earlier this morning, and we had hoped to have him here with us on the air. He gave me his personal commitment that he would come on not only as a former member of Congress, but now as a brother broadcaster. You've probably heard the headlines that Mike Rogers has signed with Cumulus Radio to do a nationally syndicated radio program on the newly rechristened Westwood One network that will start at the end of his congressional term. And we spoke earlier this morning. He jokingly said, "Hey, JD, you're going to have to give me some advice." I said, "Well, pal, I'm happy to do that in exchange for your time on the air here today." That's a perfectly acceptable quid pro quo, by the way, because it doesn't involve money. Mike Rogers is on the phone now. Mike, welcome to America's Forum. Mr. Chairman, why the decision to leave Congress, trade it in for a microphone?
Well, JD, you know better than anybody. Sometimes you can have a bigger voice outside, and you're unshackled in your ability to communicate issues that are important, like American exceptionalism and our national security posture around the world. And we've got both Republicans and Democrats that are creeping back to this isolationism, thinking that if we hide under our desks, then the whole world will be better off.
Well,
it was a hard decision, but I thought it was an important one.
And so you've made it. Now, in talking to the folks at Cumulus, is there a start date? Will there be a premiere date for your radio show? Do you know about that yet?
Well, it's going to be in January. I think the date has yet to be determined, but it's going to be January of 2015. So I'll finish out my chairmanship in December 31st, and then begin a new chapter and hopefully a broader audience to talk to about the issues that are important.
Mike Rogers, I'm joined by Dave Patton, senior editor of Newsmax magazine. David, you have a question for the congressman?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. We had heard that your brother might actually run for that seat to fill your position in what's considered a safe Republican district. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I think that there's a gentleman who has great experience and who is very, very interested in going through that contemplation process, a guy named Mike Bishop, who was the former state Senate leader for the Michigan legislature, and he's in the right spot in the district and has the right skill set, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Now this is interesting, Mike, and you'll forgive me because in my instincts now as a journalist, all the talk this morning it was a foregone conclusion that your brother Bill was going to run. Mentioning former State Senator Bishop by name in this forum seems to indicate you're giving him the blessing. Are you being diplomatic about it, or what's really going on with Bill? Has he thought about this race?
I think that, I've had great conversations with him. I think, as you know, JD, more than anybody, this does impact your quality of life. And where he's at, I'm just not sure this is the right fit at the right time. And I think he's going to pass on the race. And as I said, I think this former state senator, Mike Bishop, from the Oakland County part of the district, which is about 50% of the vote now, is going to step up to this thing, and we're continuing to have conversations with him. If he decides to run, I think he is going to be a great candidate and the candidate to beat.
So, Mike Rogers, you've made news twice today. Once personally about your retirement at the end of this term and your national radio program, but now you're telling us Mike Bishop is the guy who will be the favorite in the primary. You're mentioning him by name. It looks like your brother is going to pass on the race. Mike, you mentioned one other thing here about quality of life and serving in the Congress. We hear so much, Mike, about partisan gridlock. Did that figure into your decision, or is that while a factor, not something that really made the difference in your determination?
Well, the ability to get a larger scope of issues passed, and certainly the polarization was a factor. It wasn't the factor. I've been able to work in a bipartisan way with my counterpart, Dutch Ruppersberger, Democrat from Maryland, the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, to put together a bipartisan national security agenda in the last 4 years where we have enjoyed bipartisan support. I do see on the broader set of issues this polarization, the discussion about it's either everything I want or nothing that I want, and nothing in between. certainly isn't the Reagan Republican politics that got me fired up to come here and be a productive conservative. So it was a factor. It wasn't the factor. I think the biggest factor being that someone walked in and said, we're going to give you a national stage to present issues of importance leading into the 2016 elections. And if I could move the needle on the debate, the conversation, the dialogue, that seemed pretty attractive to me.
Well, as a guy who followed a similar path, I can tell you it is great to have a national stage to play on. The only difference, Mike, is this. You're the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. You had achieved a great deal of seniority in the House, and to move from actually voting on the issues and proposing solutions there in government to commenting on them, it's going to be part of a transition, which leads me to my next question. Are you keeping the door open one day to possibly returning to public office?
I am. I'm not closing that door, both in government service or public office. I haven't closed the door to either one of them. This is just a transition. I believe in citizen legislatures. I think somebody is going to find a way to fill this slot, and there'll be plenty of talented people who can step into it. And again, I talked to the people in Michigan and the people in Washington, D.C. This gives me an opportunity to talk to people all over the country about American exceptionalism, the future of America, the issues of the day, national security and foreign policy, in a way I just don't hear interjected into the public debate. And I think that this would be a great opportunity for me to have that public debate, change that, move that needle a little bit, and get America moving to a more self-confident, self-appreciating position as we go into 2016, understanding that America's role in the world is critically important, and so is a strong national defense.
Mike Rogers, we both agree the House is not a home, but if you could, sir, could you take us through your reasoning when you first contemplated the transition? How long ago? Is this something that just came together, or is this something that over a period of weeks and months you've been contemplating?
Well, it came together rather shortly, but it was, one of those, freak things, having to meet somebody who was in the radio business, who worked for Cumulus, happened to be their CEO, who initiated the discussion about the possibility of radio. Had never thought about it, wasn't seeking it out, wasn't something I was interested in at the time. And over the course of time and continual conversations, they were able to present, I think, the opportunity, again, to have that national stage, that national platform, to talk about the issues that I think are missing from the national debate in any way that's meaningful. And to that end, I thought, well, in the last few weeks, it just got to the point where I had to decide, do I do my last 2 years as chairman? And remember, all things come to an end here in Washington, D.C., and that's a good thing. Or do I try to move the needle nationally on these kinds of issues on a national platform? And it just made sense to me to pick the latter, to have that. Yes, I won't be able to, they'll lose my vote in Congress, but you're not going to lose my voice nationally, and I thought that was an important part of it.
So, Mr. Chairman, David Patton here. Turning to policy on intelligence, the intelligence community, as you know, has really been under fire lately. The whole NSA situation, Senator Feinstein basically accusing the CIA of spying on her own computers. You're a defender of the intelligence community, but you also hold them accountable. How confident are you that our intelligence systems that are so vital are not being distracted by a lot of other peripheral issues when we Americans feel that their primary duty is to keep us safe from terror?
Well, and that's certainly a consideration and it's something I worry about. And the dialogue on the smaller, I think, isolated issue at the CIA, now it's serious. I don't want to diminish the seriousness of the CIA even accusing the Senate of violating the laws, which is exactly what they did. I think it was poor form, horrific judgment on behalf of the leadership at the agency. But when you talk about the function and structure of people who are overseas today risking their life to collect information that does keep America safe, that has to be our focus. And I'm going to continue to have that discussion in a few months as we go through our Intel authorization bill and other things. It's important we don't lay the yoke of what I think was a horrible decision on behalf of CIA leadership on the rest of the CIA case officers and analysts and people who are getting up every day with the sole purpose of protecting the United States of America.
Mike Rogers, let me blend things together, talking about intelligence and mass communication. As you know, talk radio is an incredibly intimate format where you rely on narrative, telling stories, and you also get any number of phone calls from callers both friendly and hostile wanting to talk public policy. Now, is it going to be a challenge for you to self-edit, having been so involved with sensitive national secrets on the Intelligence Committee in the forum and the spontaneity of talk radio? How will you approach the balance, having been the former chairman of intelligence and now with a national microphone speaking to a very diverse audience in a very public way?
Yeah, I look at it as a very large town hall meeting, and of which I've participated in for the 14 years I've been in Congress. And so, I have the ability, I think, to take personal stories and relate them of the case officers and analysts and intelligence professionals and defense and military professionals around the world, and relate them back to people in their hometowns. And I think that's going to be a benefit for the program. I do that now. I've done it frequently. I know the difference between what needs to be classified and what we can use to at least or at least to illustrate what the kind of work that they're doing and why it does why in a street in name the town in Pakistan where a case of a CIA agent is meeting with someone to collect information of importance to the United States, and why that is important to the United States, why that is important to our economic prosperity. So I think I'll have a way to have those discussions, even the ones that aren't going to have it. So I'm welcoming libertarians who have an isolationist bent to call in and be a part of that dialogue. And we're not always going to agree, and Democrats and Republicans, so that we can move that dialogue again to a place where we understand why, not just say it, not just the rhetoric, but what goes underneath it, what makes America great, from that person standing in Lahore, Pakistan, trying to do something dangerous and phenomenal for the United States, all the way back to the shores of the United States. And I think that those dialogues and that conversation is going to be really important.
Mike, we know your resume in Congress and as an FBI agent and as an Army officer. Just before we go, about 15 seconds, you did radio as a student, did you not?
I did, and candidly, I was not very good. So I'm hoping that I have improved.
Don't
with the
let your
experience
new bosses
of life.
hear that. Shh, you don't want to say that, but you're being very candid. Mike Rogers, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to future discussions as you join us in the broadcasting fraternity.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Jada. Nobody better at it than you, my friend.
Oh, that's a great endorsement. Thanks very much, Mike. We do appreciate it. And thanks to you, Dave Patton, for being here to join in the
discussion.
question. Yeah, very interesting what goes on. Well, there is more to discuss on America's Forum and more issues for you to discuss. What about Mike Rogers making the transition from the Intelligence Committee to a national talk radio program? You can tweet us at Newsmax, #America's Forum, and our email is connect@newsmaxtv.com.